You all have inspired me. 2 years ago, when you welcomed me in, I didn't know that I would fall in love with this organization, or that I would find a family in all of you. And I have. I've loved every minute of it, the big moments like Matrix, the smaller moments, the meetings, the conversation about those pillars. Every second has really been a labor of love. Getting to know each of you and working with each of you, you inspire me, you're the best, and from the bottom of my heart, I thank you.
First of all, I am delighted that you're here with me at Citi this evening, because this is where I went from being a banker to a marketer about 10 years ago. So it truly is come full circle. I want to thank Maria, the team at Kellen, and all of the volunteers for making tonight and every event we have work so seamlessly and be such a wonderful experience for all of us. And of course, Liz, Catherine, thank you for the very kind words. It's really humbling to be standing in front of you, since I'm a geophysicist and not a marketer, and to be leading this organization. So now it gives me great pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker, Michelle Peluso. I know Michelle from when she was at Citi as our Global Chief Marketing and Internet Officer. She served from 2009 to 2013 in that role. Before Citi, she was at Travelocity, first as the Chief Operating Officer, then as President and Chief Executive Officer. And prior to that, she founded and was the CEO of Site 59, an online travel site that eventually was purchased by Travelocity. Michelle has served as the White House Fellow in the Clinton administration, Senior Advisor to Labor Secretary Alexis Herman, worked as a case leader at the Boston Consulting Group in New York and London. She has a lot of accolades, one of Fast Company's 100 Most Creative People in Business, been tapped as an executive to watch by Forbes and the Wall Street Journal, featured in several 40 under 40 lists, and just last month, Michelle was named on the board of directors of Nike.
You know, I wanted to talk about leadership and principles I hold dear. And to me, you know, being in a room like this is just so uplifting and so energizing, because it is such an awesome time to be a woman, to be a leader, to be a woman in business. The first principle of leadership is just to build other people up, that nobody makes it to the top alone, that you're always there as a result of a team, as a result of other people, people who extend their arm, who tell you, who make you better, who coach you, who mentor you, who shape you, whose values you admire and you trust, and that spending your career building other people up is such a privilege and such a gift, and it will be so much more rewarding than any other style. And I have seen other styles. We all have. We know those people who backstab, who take other people down, who are political, bureaucratic. We know that. But that's not leadership, and that's not what the women who came before us demand of us. The women who came before us demand of us to build other people up. And to me, you know, understanding who people are, who the people are who work with you and for you, and thinking about how you shine the spotlight on them, that's the reward of leadership. The second thing, and this one is hard, and it's harder the more successful you are, is to cultivate self-doubt. And to fight the instinct to always believe you're right. And I know there's a lot of controversy about that, because women in general sometimes maybe have more self-doubt than we should. And the idea is that the hardest truths, the real truth, are often the hardest to see. The real reality are the hardest to see, that we're created a little bit to put blinders on, that our psychological, ability to survive and prosper sometimes depends on deflecting a little bit the truth. And I think leadership is about putting that aside and surrounding yourself with people who will call a spade, who will challenge you, who will help you to be a better person, who will help you to understand the realities. I was actually with the CEO of Nike, and we were talking, and he said something, Mark Peterson, that I thought was really well articulates a principle I've always felt was important. He said a lot of his job is to edit and amplify. And I think that notion is harder and harder in today's world, because the data doesn't stop and the messages don't stop, and we're all signing up for too many things, and you could be 3 other places tonight and you could be doing 10 other things, and that world is getting faster and faster. There's no going back. There's no going back to a slower pace. And so finding the way for your organization, for your teams, for yourself, that you remember that your gift is time. Your gift is to simplify, to reduce things to their essence, to edit out the superfluous and to amplify the important things. This notion of being bold enough and simple enough is really important to me. The 4th principle, and this one's hard too, but it's very true, and it's the hard times that count most. And maybe this is a little reflective of a conversation I just recently had with the Times, but I've had really, really, like all of you will, if you're bold, if you're aggressive, if you have big dreams, if you want to accomplish great things, if you don't want to be one of those people on the side achieving mediocrity, complacent where you are, if you reach high, you will fail, you will occasionally misstep, you will occasionally make these mistakes, and it's the hard times that define who you are as a leader. And that leads me to my last principle, and it would follow quite logically from the 4th principle. To me, it's all about grace. My daughter's name is Auden Grace, and on her birth, I wrote her a letter about the word grace and why her middle name was Grace. It's one of my favorite words because, for me, it's true, I guess, for all people, but it's particularly true for women, because so much of what you do, what we all do, is we juggle families and children and friendships and community and work and, all these things, and we craft these rich tapestries of our lives. And at any moment in time, there's going to be those moments where you're not being the best CEO you could be, or you're not being the best mom you could be. I'm actually class mom. I've been class mom every year for some crazy reason. And there's nothing that caused me more anxiety and stress than being class mom. But it was the other night, and we had to do a class mom project, and so it's like 1 a.m, and I'm up I'd of course put it off, and so now I'm trying to craft some crazy creative project for my 4-year-old's class, and I'm cutting out paper flowers and hearts, and I'd bought straws, and I'm like, well, we'll just make paper flowers and paste it all together, and I'd bought this bucket, and all the kids can put their flowers in the bucket, and won't that be great? And so the next day, of course, we get to the class, and this poor, pathetic art project of plastic straws and cutout paper. And then my daughter, whose class mom is just awesome, and my daughter comes home with handcrafted robin eggs and a handmade nest. And so my poor son comes home with these straw flowers that are falling apart with glue dripping on the floor. And my daughter comes home with this perfectly crafted robin's egg and nest. So there will be times you let yourself down, and maybe you're a son, but maybe not. But to me, those are the times you need grace. You're going to be pulled in so many directions. You're going to have so many demands on your time. If you give as much as you can give, to me, that's the definition of a great life. If you give as much as you can give, you will be pulled in multiple directions, and there will be those moments where you aren't quite the mom you want to be, or the CEO you want to be, or the wife you want to be, or the partner you want to be, or the friends you want to be. And it's precisely those times you need grace. The grace to pick yourself back up, the grace to be humble enough to learn, the grace to have persistence to move forward, the grace to forgive yourself, the grace to do better next time. And holding on to that for your journey, your leadership journey, your life journey, has been a really profound thought for me. And circling back to what I said at the outset, there are girls around the world, there are women around the world who would give their right arm to be in your shoes, to be sitting where you sit, to have the opportunity to shape your lives the way you do, to have the opportunity to shape communications, New York, your career, your family, your charities. There are people who would give anything. There's never, ever, ever been a better time for women in the history of the world. There's never been a better country for women than now. There's never been a better place than where you all sit. And do something with that. Do something bold with that. Do something great with that. And when you occasionally stumble, as you will, reach out to each other, support each other, and get better for the next round. Thank you.